You know, back in April of 2014, the internet basically had a heart attack. A really nasty vulnerability was found in OpenSSL, which is the software that encrypts a huge chunk of our online world. It was this tiny, tiny flaw with a massive, massive impact. And it had the perfect name, Heartbleed. So today, we're going to break down how this one bug literally brought the internet to its knees. And look, I am not exaggerating how bad this was. When the legendary security expert Bruce Schneier was asked to read it, he didn't pull any punches. This wasn't just, another security bug. This was a fundamental breakdown in the trust we all place in online security. An 11 out of 10. So what exactly was it? Well, Heartbleed, or CVE 2014-0160, if you want its fancy technical name, was a bug in the OpenSSL library. And it let an attacker read these little chunks of a server's memory, about 64 kilobytes at a time. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but the problem was you could do it over and over and over again. And inside that memory, oh boy, you had the crown jewels, passwords, private messages, and even the secret keys that protected the entire server.
All right, so in this explainer, here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at just how catastrophic this bug was. We'll dive into how the flaw actually worked, what was really at risk, the insane race to fix it, and finally, the lasting legacy it left on internet security as a whole.
Okay, so first up, to really understand the sheer panic that this caused, you have to get a sense of the scale. OpenSSL isn't some obscure piece of software. It is the cryptographic workhorse for a massive portion of the internet. At the moment this was disclosed, it was estimated that 500,000 of the internet's secure web servers were vulnerable. That's about 17%, almost 1 in 5, of all the sites using trusted security certificates. We're talking major websites, email providers, VPNs, you name it, it was probably vulnerable. So how on earth did a single bug cause so much chaos? Well, it all comes down to a really simple feature: one missing line of code and an absolutely catastrophic oversight. So the flaw was in this feature called the TLS heartbeat extension. Its job is actually pretty simple. It lets one computer check if the other one is still connected without having to go through the whole song and dance of setting up a new secure connection. It's basically the digital equivalent of leaning over and saying, "Hey, you still there?"
And here is where the evil genius of it all comes in. In a normal heartbeat, your computer sends a message like the word echo, and it tells the server, "Hey, the length of my message is 4 characters. The server sends echo right back. All good. But the Heartbleed attack sent the word echo, and then it lied. It said, "Hey, my message is actually 64,000 characters long." The vulnerable server never bothered to check, so it sent back echo and then just kept reading from its own memory for another 63,996 bytes, handing all of that secret data right back to the attacker. So, the crucial mistake, the whole flaw, was this. The server never checked if the length the attacker claimed matched the actual length of the message. It just blindly trusted the attacker's input, set aside a huge chunk of memory for the response, and then filled it up, not just with the tiny little word it received, but with whatever else happened to be sitting in its memory at that exact moment.
And what was sitting in that memory? Well, that's where things go from bad to truly terrifying. It was basically a random grab bag of some of the most sensitive data a server could possibly hold. But you know what the most terrifying part was? The attack was a ghost. It left no trace. It looked just like normal traffic in the server logs. So an attacker could just sit there, stealing data over and over, grabbing different 64 kilobyte chunks of memory. And the server's owner would have absolutely no idea they were being robbed blind. The potential loot here was just staggering. The ultimate prize, the holy grail, was the primary key material, the server's own secret keys. If an attacker got those, they could decrypt all traffic to and from that server and even impersonate it perfectly. But it didn't stop there. Usernames, passwords, private emails, financial details. If it had passed through the server's memory recently, it was completely up for grabs. So once this bug was finally made public, it triggered a frantic worldwide emergency response. And let me tell you, this was not a simple fix. This was a multi-stage marathon to try and secure the entire internet.
Yeah, fixing this wasn't as simple as just installing a patch. Admins had to assume the absolute worst, that their server's secret keys were already stolen. This kicked off this crazy sequence of events. You had to generate brand new keys, get new security certificates, revoke the old ones, invalidate every single user session, and then finally force a global password reset. It wasn't a fix, it was a total system overhaul, and it was a monumental task for everyone involved. But the thing is, the problem didn't just disappear. While all the major websites patched things up really quickly, the long tail of the internet is absolutely vast. Years after this was all disclosed, security scans were still showing tens of thousands of devices, things like routers or printers that people forget about, were still running vulnerable versions of OpenSSL. So, after the dust settled, what did we really learn from all this? Well, Heartbleed was so much more than a technical failure. It was a massive wake-up call that fundamentally changed how we think about the very infrastructure of the internet. Now get this, the bug was out there, in the wild, for over 2 years before anyone found it. The bad code was introduced way back in late 2011 and released in March 2012. It wasn't until April 2014 that it was discovered and fixed. But look at that last point. In the immediate aftermath, the industry scrambled to create something called the Core Infrastructure Initiative to address the root cause of the problem. And that root cause was this. Heartbleed exposed the shocking reality that the security of the global economy, of governments, of our entire private lives depended on this critical piece of open source software that was, at the time, getting about $2,000 a year in donations and was being maintained by a tiny, overworked team of volunteers. One of the project's leaders said something that really stuck with me. He said the real mystery wasn't that this bug was missed, but why it doesn't happen more often. Heartbleed forced this necessary, really painful conversation about how we support the invisible infrastructure that holds our entire digital world together. And it leaves us with a really critical question. Are we truly ready for the next one?